Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to vRealize Operations Webinar Series 2016. We are kicking off the part 9 in the month of September for this series, and I'm happy to have you all joining the WebEx. And I have my partner in crime with me, Simon Eady, who will be going ahead and delivering a bunch of slides today and the demo. I'll be pitching in wherever required. We do have a couple of people from the management business unit, cloud management business unit online as well, like Ivan Rabok, who has helped us with this series as well in the previous few episodes. So if you have any complaints about the product, then you can do a private chat with him. All right. So a few housekeeping items are right over here. We will do Q&A at the end of the session. You can send in all your questions through the chat window. I'm monitoring those questions. You can either send it directly to me or you can forward them to the entire group, and we will respond to them as and when it is apt during the session. The session is getting recorded and would be posted on our blogs. We'll share the blog links soon. You can also Google us with vROps webinar series, and I'm sure you'll be able to get through all our previous recordings if you want to. All the participants who are joining in are on mute by default, but if you have any questions, use the chat window and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. In case, we'll be opening up lines for everybody at the end of the session as well, so in case you need to talk, then we can do that as well. Since I'll be the host for this one while Simon is the presenter, if you have any questions, you can shoot them to my email address if you're not able to chat or speak on the phone. And you can use that for later time as well. So I have, myself, Sunny. I work for VMware as a professional services consultant based out of Singapore. I blog on vexpress.blogspot.com, and my LinkedIn and Twitter handles are available on this page as well, along with my pretty picture. And the partner in crime, which I was talking about, is Simon Eady. Simon, would you like to introduce yourself and take it from here?
Well, yeah, it'd be helpful if I didn't take it too far forward. Yeah, so my name's Simon. I work for a company called Extrovert. I'm a senior consultant there. At the moment, very much focused on vROps. Really enjoy it. Really love the product. If you want to get hold of me, Twitter's a good place. I'm on there quite a lot. At Simon Eady. Also have a blog as well, definite.co.uk, which I do with a colleague of mine called Sam. That's me.
Right. Thank you, Simon. So today we'll be talking about vRealize Operations Manager 6.3, and that's the latest version of the product. And what we thought was we'll probably go ahead and give you a scoop up about what's going on the product, what are the new features available, and why you all should look at 6.3 as the next version where you should upgrade as soon as possible. With that, Simon, would you want to go ahead with the agenda?
Okay. Okay, so with 6.3, aside from stability issues that have been addressed, bug fixes, the usual kind of thing you'd expect in an increment for a product, there have been lots of new things added and lots of improvements made. 6.3 introduces some really, really cool stuff. So we're going to go over the highlight items. Starting at the top, they've introduced a new home dashboard, which we'll look at very shortly. The workload placement and DRS cluster dashboards had a makeover and something new there as well. Improved workload dashboard. A new vCenter solution configuration, which has been asked for by an awful lot of people. That may not sound like something you've heard of before, but it's to do with policies and other bits and pieces. Certificate management has had a good look at to make that easier, some pre-checks and stuff. Data collection status, that's really just covering, if you've got lots of adapters, what's my status? We'll have a look at how that's been improved. APIs, lots of people love it dealing with APIs, REST APIs and that. There's some stuff been added there. vSphere 6 hardening has been added, so if you're familiar with vROps before this, you'll know that 5.5 hardening was there, and that was it. Well, they've introduced some hardening around 6 and some other bits and pieces. New health dashboards. Again, this is just a quick summary, but they're going to be introducing a couple already, but there'll be more to come in the future, as you'll find out. Self-services dashboards. You're looking at vROps itself. So one of the critique I know that VMware had was the feedback on its own. How is it looking after itself? So that's been improved greatly. The UI and the UX has been enhanced, and if you've been using SNMP, they've introduced filters, which is a really good thing, as you'll find out. And there's one final item I had to quickly add, which is to do actually with Ewan, and one of his blog posts on 6.3, which I've thrown in at the end. So if you hang on, you get to see that. There's loads of goodness there as well. So let's crack on. So the new home dashboard. So this is new. As you can see here, this is what you're presented with after you've upgraded to 6.3 or you've installed. Quite a bit different from what you're used to. So the previous home dashboard had sort of a health overview. You know, you would see lots of dots relating to all the objects in your system, and they would be colored accordingly. But now they've got this, which is, in my opinion, far better. You get an overall health summary. You can see over here in the middle, you got your health status summary chart. Tells you immediately what's going on, what alerts are pertinent to that particular subject matter. So if I'm going to work my way clockwise, so top left-hand corner, you can see the tab. You know you're on the home page, and then moving over to the right, you can choose your scope. What I'll do actually very quickly is get the highlight up the laser pointer here. So across here, you've got the things that you can select. So if you haven't got 6.3 and this is the first time you've seen it, we'll go quickly into a demo a little bit later. But you can select on your vCenters here. You can select your cluster compute resources, and you can see it numbers how many you've got. So you immediately know, even if you haven't got it selected, if you only see 4 and you know you've got 5 vCenters, something's wrong. You've got your alerts per subject matter. So you can see at the moment this is currently selected, which is your virtual machine, and these are all the alerts pertinent to the virtual machine. You can select it by badge types over on the right-hand side here. So risk at the moment is selected there. Now, this is a really great way of presenting data at a very high level, but very informative, so you can get straight to the meat of the matter if you're logging in to troubleshoot or at least look at your health of your environment. Okay, so moving on. So home dashboard filtering. So you can click by color here, which is a really cool thing. So lots more interactivity on the dashboards, and I know this is something that VMware are progressing a lot more with. So you're going to find this to be a common theme, I believe. You can look at the alerts common to that particular criticality. So if it's red, which is critical, you click on it. That's what you see down here. So if that's, you know, you're logging in, you want to hit the stuff that's really affecting you immediately, then you're probably going to want to know what's down, dead, or about to die. Moving on. Actionable recommendations. So from the home dashboard, going way back to January, if you've seen the webinar, if you haven't, recommend that you do. We had a look at the actions, and this was a sort of a small portion of automation that vROps can handle. And what that means is if you've got a VM, vROps says, yeah, it's got 2 CPUs, it's kind of running hot. I'm going to recommend that you have another 2 CPUs. You can do that here. So the action, there are several actions that come in vROps out of the box, and if you set up vROps correctly, you can then automate that at the click of a button. It's not necessarily to everybody's taste. Other people have processes and standard operating procedures that they have to follow, so automation isn't an option. You can go fully automated, or you can go manual, or you can just go with the recommendations, but it's all there, and it's straight from the home dashboard. All right, so let's moving on to the next one. Now, there's much tighter integration. I mean, with 6.2 or 2.1, I know that they were improving. They're constantly improving and working on the workload placement and the integration with DRS on your clusters. DRS, as everybody knows, if you're dealing with vSphere, is one of the powerful, very well known, and people take it for granted, features of vSphere. Some people don't like to put it on fully automated for various reasons. But this is a great place where you can see not only what your clusters are doing, but what your DRS settings are for and what your migration thresholds are set to. So if you have, I don't know, lots and lots of clusters, sometimes it can be a bit difficult to lose sight of how they're all set up. And if you're keen to have stuff automated to a certain degree, or you want to go the whole hog, you want to be fully automated and you want to be aggressive with that so stuff gets moved around when it starts to get busy, this is a great overview for that. And not only does it show you an overview for that and the workload for those hosts and clusters when you click on them, so you can see here, let's get the laser again. You can see here, this fella here is on manual, and because it's been selected, this is the current state of affairs. Because it's on manual, this host, as you can see, is cooking off. So probably be a good idea, just as an example, to set that to fully automated, perhaps just set it in the middle, and then the cluster will go and sort itself out. But you can do this all from the dashboard. You don't need to log into the vSphere client. Obviously, that's down to what settings you set vROps to. Some people may not prefer to do that, but again, it's another quick time-saving issue. So if you've got lots of clusters, you can see that, oh, hang on a minute, that needs changing. Click, 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 job done. That's what it's all about. You don't want to be faffing around with lots of different windows. You can hit it here from vROps. And you can see, once again, the options that you have when you do click on the button in the top left corner there. So you can modify your DRS settings. You can change them as per you see them in the vSphere client. You can choose fully automated, or you can go conservative, the default, most aggressive. It's really down to you. You're the admin, you're the user, or whatever. You can make it, and it'll dance to your tune, as it were.
So I think there's another use case. Just wanted to add another use case to that one, which I see sitting in customer operations place most of the times. So people do configure alerts around utilization in terms of how the virtual machines or ESX servers are being utilized. And one action which an ops person has to take is to go ahead and balance these clusters out. And then there's a lot of guesswork which starts, where people go and say, oh, let me pick up these 5 virtual machines and try to vMotion them off to a less busier host. And the definition of less busier host is different for everybody, right? Somebody thinks it's CPU-wise or it's memory-wise, but we all forget that there is DRS, which is supposed to do that. And if your DRS is either not configured or it's configured at a threshold where it's very conservative, in both these cases, DRS will not be able to suffice the need of balancing the clusters across. And that's one more use case where, as an ops team member, you don't really have to go ahead and find virtual machines to migrate around, but you can probably just go ahead and change the migration threshold right from vROps to aggressive or most aggressive, and begin that action, which will ensure that your clusters are again balanced back. And now, if you want, you can switch it back over to conservative and save it again. So it's kind of automation of what you would do in case you face a situation where your virtual machines are facing heat because of clusters not being balanced across. And the final use case would be that if you see that everything is hot, then you know that you need new capacity because you're already running virtual machines on a higher consolidation ratio than what your hardware could actually support.
Yeah, there's one final thing that I forgot as I was sort of whizzing through as well, the workload placement, which I didn't give an awful lot of attention to as I was speaking.
Yep.
It's going to make recommendations, and it's not necessarily based on one cluster. So if you have a virtual machine that's sitting in one cluster, vROps has the ability to see everything in your estate if you let it, and it'll say, I think this VM here is actually better suited to this cluster over there. Now, you as the admin may know that that cluster over there is an out-of-bounds cluster, and that's not an option. But it might be that it's one of your production clusters also, and that's a really good move for you. You just weren't aware that VM there would be better over there. So you get these recommendations. It's helping you balance everything out and get more money out of your estate, getting more effort. It's going to avoid failures if stuff starts to cook off. it's all good, and it's information for you, so you know what's going on your estate.
Yep, and I think there are a lot of people who confuse DRS with workload placement, and they think that if there's already DRS, why do they need workload placement? So I just want to call out that DRS works within clusters, and workload placement works across clusters.
Yes.
And I think that statement should be easy enough to understand, and that why do you need both of them working together?
Well, here's a good example here using the workload, or rather you can see here essentially what you've got. Your different clusters. You've got your lovely workload distribution dashboard that was introduced a while back. You can see two clusters. One of them is, let me get the laser out here again. So this here, when you're looking at this particular widget, this is the optimal location. This is where you really want stuff to be, if possible, please. That's where you're basically using your clusters to almost the perfect amount. You're not overdoing it, you're not underdoing it, you're making good use of the hardware. So you can see, as it says here, a perfect opportunity is because this one here is underutilized, this one's overutilized. It's telling you where the contention is, so it'll make recommendations. You can see these three hosts, which are likely to be a member of this one, or it might be one or two here. You just have to hover over them. You can click through them. Everything is interactive. But you've got the lovely option here to rebalance as well. So lots of really helpful stuff there to make sure that you have got your workload split very evenly, very efficiently. Your VMs are going to be happy, and therefore your customers are going to be happy. And at the end of the day, a happy customer is happy for everybody.
Yep,
all right.
Absolutely.
So you can see a little bit more about the workload balancing here. You can actually select at the top left here with the improvements. You can choose where the constraint is. So this one is based on CPU demand. This one here is based on memory. So you can quickly find out where the contention is. So in this instance, CPU is not really the problem here, but memory is. So that's where when the rebalance action takes, it'll be based, across everything, but you can see where the contention is. So if you wanted to, if you didn't want to automate it, you wanted to manually have a look and understand what's going on, there you go. Information is power, as they say. All right, vCenter solution configuration. Right, so one of the things that people were asking for was when you deployed vROps, you simply had this lovely wizard. How to explain? I suppose that's not just this bit here, but and we'll get to that in a bit. But there was this great wizard that you could define policies, and that didn't appear again. Well, that's something that's been implemented, and I'm just going to highlight the area that it is. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. We'll probably come to it a bit closer in a second, but this define monitoring goals thing down here, which, so if you're you've got your vCenter adapters already, and you've got your instances, which are here. This define monitoring goals button here, this is where you can quickly redo your policy based on certain goals, as it were. That's not all this does, by the way. So you can enable and disable actions very quickly on the right-hand corner here. Very, very handy stuff that they've added. So if you wanted to essentially take advantage of this. Oh, and one other change here. Sorry, I know I'm skipping around a bit here because there's an awful lot to cover. Where's the laser again? Oh, I can't see it. Is it on that page there? Yeah, it is. So in the past as well, if you notice at the top on this particular widget, which I don't think there's much drawn attention to it, you had to set up the connectivity with the Python's adapter if you wanted to automate stuff. That's no longer there, but it's still there. And it's simply, so you've got your credential here. So these are your instances, these are your vCenters you're connected to. But you no longer have the Python's adapter at the top here that you have to collect and add the credentials again and the instance and the FQDN and so on. You simply switch it on or off here, which is much less hassle. So if you don't want the Python adapter running, if you're nervous, Now, even though it can't do anything unless you configure it, you can leave it disabled here and it's all good. But if you want to quickly enable it and try it out, well, there you go. It's all there. The options here with the vCenter configuration solution here, you've got quick abilities to reset the content. So if you're debugging, you're not sure what the heck is going on, changes have been made, and you just want to go back to the default out-of-the-box context, you can by resetting if you wish. You can define the monitoring goals. Now, this is the bit I was talking to you about the policies. So the wizard was very popular, but again, it wasn't coming up in the previous instances. So this introduction of it is very, very cool. It's a very high-level thing to do, but that's sometimes all people want. So if initially when you deployed it and you were just monitoring virtual machines only, which can be quite common, but you've now decided you want to do all the objects, or maybe it was the other way around, you were just monitoring the back-end infrastructure and it wasn't your responsibility to monitor the VMs, but that's changed now. You can make those changes very, very quickly here. So you can see on the screen here, this is the wizard that you get presented with. You can decide what you're going to monitor, how you're going to monitor it, to what degree that you're going to monitor it, are you going to enable hardening, and so on. And it does it very, very quickly, and then it creates the policy here. Very handy, very useful. It's good on VMware to add, customers have been asking, so they've responded to that. Certificate management. So in my experience, some customers go for certificates, some customers go with the out-of-the-box. It's their choice. People wanted to do validation checks and so on. They've all been introduced. You can't upload expired certificates now and other bits and pieces, so this will help you get through that process. I know lots of people find certificates to be a pain point. If you don't deal with certificates on a regular basis, it can be a little bit of a hassle or a conundrum. So this is just going to help you get this done easier. Okay, data collection status. Now this for me is really useful. For me personally, some recent customers I've dealt with, they had an awful lot of adapters and instances. So just to give you an example, for instance, the customers that I've been dealing with, just the VMware vSphere adapter, they had an awful lot of vCenters that they were monitoring at once. And previously, you had to click in and then go through the lists, and you had to figure out, are they all collecting? And there was no real way of knowing that very quickly. Well, that has been addressed here. And not just, so you can see here on the solutions, let me get the laser again. So in this window here, you can see the solutions in the administration pane in vROps, and you can see the different solution types. This is your standard VMware vSphere one. You can see that when it's a green tick, it means everything's good. If that color changes on any of those adapters for any reason, that means at least one or more are not collecting, or that there is a problem of some kind. So green is good. Green is your new favorite color. We'll move on. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go back very quickly. I don't know if it shows it here. No, I'll show you in the lab, but not only here. So not only here in the solutions.
It shows on the home page as well.
That's right, yeah, on the top sort of right-hand corner. You've got this lovely little widget that will... yeah. Shall I go back? I'll go back and quickly show it. Let's go back a couple. Let's just quickly zoom back to... No, not that one.
No, it was there on the same slide, but yeah, it was smaller in font. Probably you can see that in the demo.
Yeah, let's do that. That didn't help. Let's skip through. Let's just trying to be clever, but there we go. But yeah, it's there. It's very clear as well. So as soon as you log in, bang, you're going to know if one of your instances isn't collecting. And it might not be that vROps is at fault, by the way. It might very well be that the endpoint that you're trying to monitor has gone down, or your network has a problem. And everybody loves to blame the network. So, that's your data collection status. So APIs for cluster management. So as you can see, Newcastle Service Public REST APIs. So if you want to do some scripting, use that to do some configuration. It's all there. Documentation at the bottom there. as ever. So if you want to find it, it's actually built into vROps. So
this is pretty powerful,
that's where to go.
Because I've had customers who've been deploying vROps in each of their sites because they want to follow one vROps per site rule, and they've come to a point where they say that now we don't want to spend time deploying vROps. Can you just do that automatically? While there are posts out there from the past, from William Lamb, who talk about how to go ahead and create the cluster, it doesn't really give you each and every option from a configuration standpoint.
That's
and
right.
I think the most amount of time which it takes is more configuration rather than creating a cluster. So with this API, it's absolutely fantastic because you can just push out all the requirements through. So you can basically tag along with the vCenter API to deploy the nodes. And once the nodes are deployed as virtual machines or appliances, you can kick in this another set of API, talking to those nodes and configuring them at different roles, and then bringing them all together in a cluster, setting up the password. It's basically 3 days worth of work in large environments, which can be completed like within an hour or so, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
So and people can use this for their training environments as well.
Yeah, it's super helpful. In the past, as Sonny was saying, the only option was really just to deploy them, but there was no internal configuration. So this has been a great add. So if automation is your thing and you're doing regular deployments, this is your new friend. Okay, hardening. So if you're familiar with vSphere, there were hardening guides that were released, obviously to comply with different standards, Department of Defense, MOD, whatever. And vROps can check against 5.5 in the past, so you could enable that in vROps, and then it would tell you if you were compliant or not. Well, they've now introduced vSphere 6, but not just vSphere 6. There's been hardening added not just for ESXi, but for vCenter, for your VMs, networks. So this is really good stuff. I'm going to give you a quick warning, and this is just simply field case type stuff. There's nothing wrong with enabling this, but if you are not really interested in hardening, you just want to see what it does, then I wouldn't switch it on, because your dashboard will illuminate like a Christmas tree if you haven't hardened your environment, because this thing really will tell you if you are not compliant. If you don't want lots of alerts and you just wanted to have a quick peek under the hood, don't do it. I would suggest fire up a lab, switch it on, and you'll see exactly what it does. It's essentially going to alert you against everything that you are non-compliant for. And if you've got a fairly large estate, that could be quite a lot if you haven't already started preparing for this. So it's very, very helpful for environments that require this. But I would strongly urge you not to switch it on if you have no intention on hardening your environment or going even halfway, because it will just carry on complaining and telling you that you're not doing your job right. That's its job. It needs to tell you that you're not compliant. So just something to bear in mind. So lots more checks. So you can see on the bottom left-hand corner there, lots of improvements, lots of extra stuff added. So this is all really helpful stuff if you're in a more sort of secure environment. So going back to the defining monitoring goals or the quick policy editing, if you wanted to modify that, let's say just for one vCenter, which you can do, so you have a new policy for that vCenter, you can enable that and do it. But again, just, I would say play with it in a lab first, get used to how it does it, and then, go ahead and fill your boots. And there we go, and you can see where you can enable it here in the alert definitions in the policy if you're not going to do it the other way. Oh yes, and the reporting, of course. So the reporting on the hardening has been improved quite a lot as well. The sample compliance report there. So if you've got reporting is obviously a very strong feature of vROps. If you've got an environment that requires hardening, your boss needs to generate reports to the board or whoever they need to send reports. It might be the customers have these requirements. You can give them the non-compliance reports and say, hey, look, everything is good, or this is our current state of play because we're still working our way through. Just useful to have. Okay, now this is another cool new thing. VMware, obviously, we've got lots of products. And one of the things that is being introduced, if you look on the bottom right here, let me get the old laser out here. Eventually, there are going to be solutions for all of the STDC stack components. So this means if you're using a lot of the suite, so if you've got the cloud suite, you're using VRA or VRO, or maybe you're using just maybe 2 or 3 of the options. Regardless, there will be out-of-the-box stuff that you can download. Sorry, out-of-the-box download. That's oxymoron. You can download these things from the Solutions Exchange. So if you're using NSX, you can download these health dashboards, plug them in, and you will get some really great metrics through specific for that particular STDC component. So if you're using VRA, yep, this is great. It doesn't really matter, but you can see here that this is the future plan. So notice the word eventually. So don't come and shoot me on Twitter later when you can't find all of these. They're not there yet. Some of them are there, the rest are not. So initially, you got vROps and vCenter. The rest are coming, guys. So, you know, this is a great addition. Obviously, having vROps, lots of people are like, oh, yeah, it'd be great if I could monitor this as a whole. Because we all know when you're deploying VRA, it could be a single instance, it could be a distributed instance, or VRO, or VRB, or SRM, whatever it might be. People want better insight, and who's going to know the product better than VMware? So this stuff is coming, guys. So this is a really good addition. Just stay tuned to the Solutions Exchange, and you'll find out when these things will get released. You can see here just on the example on the vCenter, so you can click on the different components. Oh yeah, Postgres is not so healthy. What's going on? This sort of stuff is gold, especially when you've got all the other information going on. Oh, incidentally, you must install vROps Operations Manager 6.3 endpoint agent. So that's an important gotcha there, guys. So if you're using previous versions, you need 6.3.
Yeah, that's why it's what seems 6.3 session.
Yeah, very much. Self-monitoring dashboards. As I was saying earlier, there was some self-monitoring in vROps. Customers were saying, yeah, this is great, but it needs more. We need more detail. We want to see stuff under the tin. And that's a requirement for some customers. Other people, maybe they're not so fussy. Regardless, this has been greatly improved. So if you want to keep an eye on vROps, I mean, ultimately, vROps, for many customers, it becomes a critical component. It sits right in the middle, and it's monitoring all of your endpoints. It could be monitoring multiple clouds. It could be monitoring just your private infrastructure. You could be tying it into AWS, SCOM, whatever it is. It starts to become a critical component. Therefore, you want to keep an eye on its health and what it is doing. So we already know that we can plug it into Log Insight. You can get the logs into Log Insight from vROps, but here is a dashboard, good, solid dashboard views of what's going on under the hood for vROps itself. So you've got some enhanced UI and visuals and UX. These are all subtle changes that you won't necessarily spot immediately. Some of them could be based on widgets and that. So here are examples, trend views, so you can see multiple resource for metrics. And you'll see this when I give you the quick lab demo in a while. Absolute date ranges, so there's some really handy stuff added. Heat maps, I mean, lots of people love the heat maps. You've got a nice way to filter down there. I'm not going to linger too long on here. If you want to go and play around with it, I strongly suggest you do. It's just these really subtle but really useful improvements. Where are we here? More heat map improvements there. So again, if you're using heat maps in your environment or you're using a NOC, vROps, you've got NOC dashboards, this stuff could, make your life just that much easier. Or if you have troubleshooting dashboards, you're not using it in a NOC. Again, these are all new features that are just going to make your life easier. A little bit more here, so you've got zoom backs and so on. I mean, as you can see, this example on the bottom left-hand corner, let's get the laser. Sometimes you're monitoring an awful lot of stuff with your heat map. And that might be what you want. But in some cases, you want to zoom in a little bit. Well, these are your options here. You can reset, you can drill in, lots of really, really cool stuff. Where are we? Oh yeah, you can. Now this is cool. This is very cool. So if you're used to doing, or you're used to building dashboards, you'll know that the flexibility when you're placing widgets on the dashboard has been a little bit restricted in the past. That has been hugely improved. Things snap a lot better to different locations. You have a lot more control on where you can place stuff. So I know it's not massively clear here, but you can see here you've got a widget here which is sort of bigger than this one. This one overlaps and encroaches in this space. You've got 3, you've got 2, you've got 1. Much more flexible, much easier to use. It's a little bit more intuitive as well. You don't have to faff around with the order of stuff to get the positioning right. So less frustration means more hair on your head. Everybody's happy, yeah?
Your photo, I can see that you've lost a lot of hair with these dashboards.
yeah. I get a lot more grey hair as well. We've got new and updated widgets, the capacity utilization. So that's not new. That's been updated and improved. The new widgets that we covered a little bit earlier, the DRS cluster settings and the recommended actions. The recommended actions, by the way, is the new homepage, in case you're wondering what that is. But you could throw that in anywhere, or you could add it just as a widget into perhaps your unlock dashboard, whatever it is you want to do. Okay, so this is really cool. I get kind of excited about this because a lot of people use SNMP for their alerting into middleware and then off to Snow or whatever else. And up until now, it's simply been a fire hose exercise where you get alerts, and if you've enabled this to go to a destination, then regardless of the alert, it's going to send it off to the destination. And that, for some customers, has not been specifically helpful. They've just wanted alerting for specific portions of the estate or specific types of alerts. So this is fantastic. I can't sort of stress that enough, especially if you've dealt with this before, you will know how good this news is. So if your customer is like, yeah, this is great, I can see loads of alerts coming in, especially if it's a vROps in a new estate, but I'm only interested in the quick wins or the critical items. You can set this up so it'll only fire off traps based on the criticality. So if it's just critical, or you could set the scope to be, I'm only interested in these kinds of objects. So it could be VMs, or it could be just these particular VMs. So this is massively helpful, especially if you have larger estates where an awful lot of stuff is coming through and all that information is then pushed out via SNMP to the middleware, and the middleware then having to manage all of that data, and you have to filter it there. So you're essentially controlling it at source, which has been a big ask by many, many customers. Here it is. Use it. I strongly recommend it. An excellent feature. One of the final things here, metric reduction. So lots of stuff has been tidied up, but mostly for the... So you're not losing anything, but you've got lighter CPU usage. So this is essentially improvements where it matters. So you're getting performance improvements. Everything has just generally been looked at to say, how can we make this better without removing functionality or reducing the features that you have available. So, and this is the final thing which I've quickly thrown in. Ewan, thank you for sending me that thing. I wasn't aware of this. This isn't the only thing, by the way, which is why I've included the link here. So I would urge everyone on the call here to go and visit Ewan's blog. It isn't just Supermetrics. There are lots of other features that have been improved, which I've not covered in this slide decks. Supermetrics being one of them, loads of other bits and pieces. I don't know if Ewan wants to jump in very quickly and cover anything else that's in that particular blog article. Is he available?
He is. Ewan, would you want to unmute yourself if you want to speak? Going once. He's technically challenged, so I would have to unmute himself. Oh, there you go.
It's too difficult.
Go ahead, man.
I was expecting the voice too. Just in mute. Yeah, there are a couple of things. memory right sizing. So now we have in-guess memory counters. You don't actually need to have agents anymore. And so if you've got thousands of VMs, so long you're on vSphere 6.0 update 1, your VMware tools, your ESXi, and your vCenter, you get the memory, the in-guess counters out of the box.
Yep. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Now, people might be wondering, what does that mean? You want to talk about what this will actually change and how will it make things better?
Sure. Yeah, it gives us a better visibility into the memory utilizations within the guest OS, within Windows or within Linux. vCenter, being a hypervisor, just like any other hypervisor, has some level of visibility, but nothing beats being able to see it from inside, right?
Yep, absolutely. So how I look at it, Ivan, is that the decisions around reclaiming capacity and right sizing can be done better if you have visibility end to end, and right from the hypervisor up to the operating system stack. Sometimes an application as well, depending upon what kind of apps you're running. So I believe with that one change, it's kind of a move towards how we can have more visibility before we give recommendations around right sizing. I think those metrics are not being used right now, but I've seen a bunch of dashboards which you've done on your blog, which uses some of those metrics to determine capacity and utilization of capacity by virtual machines. So I think that's a great start towards where we are going with the product.
Oh, absolutely. There's one thing that just comes to mind, actually. Iwan, Sunny, you can jump in here if I'm not correct here, but one thing I probably should have added to the deck is upgrade path. That has actually changed, to my knowledge, from what I used to know. So in the past, if you wanted to upgrade, so if you have vROps on 6.0.x, in the past, before various changes, you had to go to 6.0.3, then 6.1, and then up. You don't have to do any of that anymore. If you're on 6.0, you can actually make the jump to 6.3, I believe. I did double check that, and that's what I heard, but I'm pretty sure that's the path. I don't know if the documentation has been updated on the VMware sites, but if you're unsure, then I would say at least jump to 6.1. But I am fairly 99% certain that's the case. I have seen it ratified, but I just haven't seen any documentation to back it up yet. I don't know if you want to jump in there, Sunny, if you've got any other information on that.
I did see a couple of emails floating around on that, but I do not have a complete picture. So what I would do is I go through the release notes and figure out where I am and where I want to go. As the release notes support that, I follow that. So yeah, until the time it's not in the release notes or in the documentation as Simon just mentioned, it is still not supported. So I would ask you to read the release notes and if you see a feature or an option available there, and that's your right choice to go ahead with an upgrade.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think the next stage is going to be a lab session. Do we want to do questions now before we jump in the lab? Because I'm just going to essentially show where stuff is, which I don't want to do that if anyone's got any burning questions.
So
Simon,
I just want to leave one. Yep. Go ahead, Ivan. Sorry.
You might want to explain it's in the lab that the GUI editor for XML. So now people no longer have to figure out, what is the metric code. It's all in the UI.
Yep. That's for the XML. We can actually do a demo for that one. For creating a managed metrics. Right.
Oh, yeah, we could do that like next time maybe or something. That's cool.
Yep.
Any other
I don't see a question at this moment.
No?
I don't see questions at this moment. I do see a few comments, but they're all funny comments. And then no questions at this moment, so we can move forward. Yeah.
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly pause the screen while I jump into my lab. where I didn't pray to the lab gods, and it's giving me hassle. We're going to need to talk amongst yourselves a second. My lab doesn't want to talk to me.
All right.
Yeah, just to add on that, I guess this is still in the time. One of the things that we use vROps is for general purpose troubleshooting. For example, you need to find out in the past, because by the time you were called by customers on the problem, it's already happened in the past. Let's say you wanted to know, how many VMs were exceeding the disk latency of, let's say, 20 milliseconds across a couple of clusters. Now, to do that in the past, you got to create groups. And but now with the super matrix, that you can specify a condition, you can just do a count on the number of VM that has disk latency above 20 seconds. And you can then just plot line chart without modifying production, because everything is just done as a preview.
Yep. Excellent. I saw that enhancements on the blog post, which we just discussed. So that's the if then else, and the count if is kind of nirvana. You're bringing in Excel right into vROps, wherever the data source is. So it makes it even better.
Yeah, there was customers in Australia, Dean customers that wanted to do a chargeback per terabyte. So we have to put an if condition, and that's another use case.
Yep.
Yeah, my lab.
Are you guys struggling with your lab?
Yeah, it was talking to me last night, but it seems to be grumpy at the moment. It's just not talking to me at all.
There you go.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We have Ivan who can do his lab anytime. He lives in the lab.
Yeah, you can use this one if you want. When I do drive.
Okay.
If
Let me just go ahead and change your.
Are you going to set Ivan as presenter, or?
We can. I mean, if your lab is acting up.
Yeah, we'll go. No, it's not playing ball for some reason. So,
okay.
What I'll do is I'm going to stop sharing. There we go.
There you go. Ivan, you have the share.
Hang on.
So thank you for the impromptu demo session.
Hang on. Because there are certain internal stuff you've been recording this thing.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Sure. We're working on the next version, so hang on. I just...
All right, so guys, while we have this statistical break in between, would you guys want to go ahead and ask your questions if you want to on the chat window?
Okay.
Who was that?
Why don't you take over?
All right.
Take over.
Yep, we can see your screen now.
Yeah, take over.
All right. So do you want to go ahead and ask for control, Simon?
Yeah, sure. Let's have a look here. I got to find the option here.
Just right click.
Hang on.
Oh, here we go.
There you go. Yep.
There we go. Awesome. Okay. So we jump over. We'll go to the home screen here. Thank you very much, Iwan.
Anytime, my friend. Thank you for doing this.
Just a quick thing for everybody then. If you look here on the top right-hand corner, where you see the little refresh sort of semicircle, you can see these circles or these little dots. This is the essentially if I click on it here, is it going to do it for me? There you go. So you can see the notification. So there are 18 adapters and they're all green, which is great. If there was a problem there, that would be red. And you could quickly click on it and have a look at what's going on. Very, very helpful, very, very handy. You can quickly see just from there. I'm going to go to that home dashboard there. And we'll have a look at the new dashboard.
Yep. This will take some time. I think this environment is running in US and Ivan is accessing from Singapore, and you are sitting in UK driving it. So it's like all the...
I think this, don't use this one. I think somebody was playing with it. I don't play with this thing. Disclaimer.
Okay.
But this is a big map with a lot of people.
Sure. Okay. Well, what we can do here, let's see if we can find one of the other. Let's have a look. Is it? I think the self-help, or is it the? Let's see. I can see them here. If that's the old one or the new one. I think that's the old one.
That's the old dashboard, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't
probably you would have to
demo gods.
Demo gods. All right. I think it would be useful if you could probably plan a demo, which is planned in the next section if we have, because we are not sure.
Yeah.
This is not Ivan's lab. He's giving me Hisham's lab, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, we are all sharing this one. What you can do, you can show the XMLs, Simon.
Do you want to drive,
mate,
and do that? Yeah.
I can do that. That's fine. I'm a little familiar with this environment, which helps.
You've got a grandson in.
Let's have a look.
Somebody has to grant.
You got to click approve.
Do you have to request control, I think, Sunny, don't you?
No, Simon.
Okay.
Simon, click approve. You are controlling my screen.
I don't see the approve option, I'm afraid.
There you go.
So, hang on.
Oh.
Okay, done.
Take control. All right, I got it. Okay, so if you guys remember, we basically had to create XMLs for some of the dashboards in order to do interactions, right? And for that, you would basically go into the content option under Manage Metric Config, and then paste that XML on this window under Resource Kind Metric folder or directory. Now, that basically helps you create interactions or pass on metrics of a particular object from one widget to another. For instance, if you have a list of objects and you're passing on CPU utilization, memory utilization of all those virtual machines, of our selected virtual machines onto a heat map or onto a scoreboard widget. To do that, you have to create these XMLs, which will showcase specific metrics which you need to pass on from the database. Now, earlier you had to actually go ahead and create this XML by figuring out what all metrics are required for creating this XML. But with the new, and you can see this example over here where this is one of my dashboards which I created for cluster capacity utilization. Now, with the new version, you can actually go ahead and create an XML and select all the metrics right on the face itself. So you can see I have the option of selecting the adapter kind. I can just go ahead and say I want the metrics for the VMware adapter, for instance, which will be the vCenter adapter. Here you go. Oops, sorry. And click on Go. And as soon as I do that, you can see the adapter kind key automatically comes to VMware. And then I can say, out of that VMware adapter, I want metrics for a specific resource kind. So I can go ahead and click on resource kinds, and I say I want cluster compute resource metrics, and click on Go. And there you go. It automatically builds the XML further. And then I can say I want, for a cluster, I want to know what is the CPU demand percentage. I double-click on that, and or select demand percentage, for instance, and click on Go. And it automatically pulled out the metric label from the database and it gave me a nice way to go ahead and define that specific metric. And that's basically awesomeness right over there, because before or prior to this, in order to create this, imagine if I'm creating this kind of an let me just cancel out of this one. And this is an XML which I created, right? To do this, I need to get 16 metrics, and for each one of them, I need to dig the API or go to the super metric widget or go somewhere in the system to figure out how these attribute keys are written inside for each of all of the metric. But with the system built right over here on the top, which allowed me to go ahead and select all these metrics, my life became much more easier. And that's which is something new, which is introduced with 6.3. So if you are an advanced vROps player who does a lot of dashboards and wants to create fancy dashboards which cover a lot of metrics, and you want to basically do it in a custom way for either the vCenter adapter or any third-party adapters which you install, then you can actually go dig deep and get all this right on the face of or on the UI itself. So that's one more enhancement which Ivan is very happy about, and that's why he was pushing us to go ahead and talk about it. But yeah, this is pretty cool stuff.
I'm not Leo Kamrat. Leo can do it.
Then this is what Simon was talking about, where you can see the adapters right on the face. And if you have a adapter which has a problem, you can just click right there, and it takes you back to the solutions page, and you're right on that specific adapter straight away, and you know that there's something wrong, and you can take an action like stopping the adapter or refreshing it, or maybe deleting it if you no longer require it. So that's another thing which is added as an enhancement. For some reason, it's playing fine now. So I have a couple of more minutes. Let me try. So you wanted to go ahead and showcase the dashboard? Let me try and see if I can get there.
It's a big old list of dashboards. I think that home dashboard isn't working.
Yeah. I think so. This is a lot of demo stuff which happens on this environment. That's why we have so many.
I'll tell you what. One thing I was
thinking of.
Oh. Sorry, go on. No, you go ahead, mate. Yeah, I was going to go. And, I think you're thinking exactly the same as me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I was going about talking about the action stuff, and at the same time how you can do advanced settings within a particular adapter you're working with, or how you can redefine your policy. All that can be done under the Manage Solution option. So if I'm managing a particular adapter, in this case vCenter adapter, I could select any of the vCenters which I'm collecting data from using these adapter instances, and if I want, I can enable or disable actions for them straight away. So I don't have to reconfigure a Python adapter, which, as Simon mentioned, could be a pain because you have to enter credentials a couple of times and then do a lot of stuff twice, which you can actually do just with this button. And it kind of gives a definition of what exactly is the vCenter actions. You can, if you want, set up alternate actions credentials as well. So if you don't want to use the same credential which you're using over here to collect data, because it only has read-only permissions, and you want an action adapter or an action credential which can actually shut down VMs as well or add CPU or memory, then you would need a new credential for that. In that use case, you can actually just click on this drop-down and mention that credential separately if you have to. And you can just go ahead and test the connection further down.
There is another reason why you may want to have an alternate credential, and that's for auditing purposes. If you wanted to see if you were going to use the automation actions, whether it was fully automated or someone actually intervened and did it manually, you can see if the system did it automatically or if someone decided to initiate. It's a very important audit trail item if you have a specific account for the actions.
Yep, absolutely. Cannot agree more. And then this is where if you need to go ahead and redefine your monitoring goals and you don't really want to go through all the settings of the policies, and you just want to go ahead and on a high level or 10,000 feet change what your monitoring scope is, then you can just go ahead and come, select the adapter, say redefine, and for instance, you can say, I want to go ahead and do hardening alerts on this particular vCenter instance because this has to be HIPAA compliant or some sort of compliant, or at least VMware hardening compliant. And you can just say yes, and you start getting alerts if you have not done hardening on ESXi hosts, on vCenter, or for 3 of the virtual machine profiles which we were discussing earlier. So all that goodness is as we are showcasing to you as we just described over the presentation deck as well. So I think just 2 minutes over, and you want to talk about something else?
Yeah. Do you want to jump across just to the filtering? I think we've got enough time just to show them where that SNMP filtering or the alerting is.
Sure. So we can go to the notifications and
content. Yeah, go to I think it's the content tab, isn't it? Yeah, that
Yep.
one. And then in the middle, notifications. Yeah, there. So this is the section where you can. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Someone's already got it set up. Awesome. They must have known we were doing this. This is where you can set your trap filters. And you can do this, by the way, for emails as well. This is really powerful, guys. If you're using SNMP and you're sick of fire hosing, or it's probably somebody else is sick of you fire hosing their middleware, then you're going to be their new best friend if you can sort this out. And there's so much choice in there, guys, that you got all your filtering needs are right there. It's just a fantastic addition to 6.3. I think I'll leave it there.
Absolutely.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, and actually what I see is that it not only on SNMP, but this filtering criteria works on even the log file plugin and other stuff as well, which is kind of cool, because then it allows you to do REST notifications or standard emails, as you just mentioned, and do filtering on them as well. I know a lot of people like to use standard emails as well. So for them who want to just send email-based alerts, they can do a bunch of other filtering options as compared to what they were in the previous version as well. I use the log file plugin to log the alerts in a specific directory and then parse them over to ServiceNow. And this I can clearly see would be very advantageous to us because we can just control what alerts we need to forward and on what objects we need to forward those alerts. With that, I think I would probably stop here because it's already 5 minutes over, and look at if there are any questions on the chat window. All right. I think people are already answering those questions. So Brent has been helping answering a couple of them, I believe. And I don't see any new questions out there. All right. Oh, so Brent has a comment then. Ben, is it how you pronounce your name? Ben Granis. And he has a comment then, if you want, you can go ahead and get all the metric names from the documentation as well and paste them in the manage metric config to create the XML. So yeah, I mean, if you have it well documented, for vCenter adapter we have, but if you're using a third-party adapter and you do not have that documented, then you can probably browse through the options. But if you have a well-documented system, you can copy those metrics right from there into the manage metric config window. I don't see any other questions at this moment, so I think we are good. With that, do you have any closing comments, Simon?
No, thanks for your patience, everybody. My lab meltdown, I shall be giving it a stiff talking to and sending it to the corner of the room later. But I think that's it. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.
All right, thank you, Simon. And Ivan, I think he just jumped off because he has to go on another WebEx. So thank you, Ivan, whenever you listen to this recording. And thank you, everyone else who joined in, and hope you got some scoop of what 6.3 is all about. And we'll continue to go ahead and deliver sessions for the next 3 months as well for this year to round up the series. So look forward to this recording and the new announcements on our blogs, which we shared earlier. Thank you once again, and you have a great day, great evening, and great morning, wherever you are. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, mate.